In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to price your 3D printed products, whether you're a seller that's selling functional designs or articulated designs just like these. I'm going to break down exactly what you need to know when it comes to pricing your products and how to ensure you're actually making a profit from the designs that you sell. So with that said, let's go ahead and jump right into it and get started. Now, the reason why I'm making this video is because when most people are getting started selling their 3D prints online or in person, they typically don't know what to price their products at. And for example, most beginners tend to base their pricing based on the average. So if you see a product that's selling for around $7, they would typically range or price their products around that price range. But the thing is, without knowing your numbers, your expenses, and as well as the leftover profit, it's really hard to determine whether or not it's worth it selling that product. So what I want to do here is jump right into my computer and break down exactly what you need to know so that way you're selling products with enough profit margins to make selling worth it for you. So with that said, let's go and jump right into my computer and get started. So in this video, I'm going to be covering a variety of examples. The first one is this 3D printed army flexi. Here is this little guy right here on screen. You can kind of see how he turned out. Articulated flexis, dragons, toys just like these. These are the lowest hanging fruits when it comes to selling products. And the reason why I say that is because it's just an easy sell. It doesn't take too much time or effort to find files that you can license to sell. And it also doesn't require a lot of upfront costs other than your 3D printer and maybe some filament. And it's also a quick impulse buy. So when I think of flexis, I think of like those impulse purchases you buy right at the store checkout. And that's what flexis are to me, which is why you really want to nail this down and know your pricing for these products, especially if you want to sell them. So for example, for this product here, this is going to take us around 87 grams of filament. So 88 grams. So I would say roughly around 90. But what you don't see is that it's going to take us about 5 hours and 32 minutes to print this. So obviously we would probably sell this or print this entirety on the entire build plate. Whereas where you typically wouldn't print flexis as a one-time thing, you would actually print them in bulk. So for one time, it's around 890 grams of filament, where if you were to print all of them all at once or try to squeeze as many as you can, this is around 170 grams of filament with around 10 hours of print time. So the difference is that you get an additional 4 hours of print time, and it's only going to cost you around an extra 100 grams of filament just to print all of these. So my point here is that once you know your numbers, more specifically when it comes to the print itself, it makes things a lot easier. So what I'm actually going to do is reference these first, and I'm going to be using the print to product calculator. This is a calculator that I designed. This has worked for me and my students and what we use to price our products. And what I want to do here is kind of show you how this works. So there's a couple of resources here. The first tab here down below is the calculator for your own site, whether you're using Stripe, Shopify, whatever payment processor you're using. This is the processing fees for Stripe. So that's just like the general most common one. The second one is Etsy. Etsy is the second most common one because Etsy, everyone starts on Etsy. It's just a quick way to sell products without too much upfront work, effort, and marketing. And in addition, it's also fairly easy to get started. Third is TikTok Shop. So if you're really well versed in TikTok, you know what you're doing, you know how to market products, you can do exceptionally well in TikTok Shops. We have students that are selling at least 5 to 10 grand a month selling 3D printed products just on TikTok Shop alone. And what I see TikTok being as well, it's sort of an impulse buy platform where if you see a product, it looks good and the marketing is right, then you're more than likely to buy it. And then lastly, you have local events and shows, which if you're selling in-person events, then that's obviously those other fees like travel and gas, food, labor, and vendor fees. So let's start off with the first one. So let's just say if you were selling this 3D printed Army General guy, right? It's going to take us about 5 hours and 32 minutes and then 87 grams of filament. So I'm gonna go ahead and jot everything down here. I went ahead and divided everything into segments. You have cost of materials, electricity cost, labor cost, shipping, and processing fees. So the cost for a spool of filament, the total cost you pay for one roll of filament, let's just say on average, it's around $14.99 on the Bamboo Labs website. So that's like the average price. Next is the filament cost, which is the amount of filament spent printing that product. So it takes us about 90 grams of filament, and the total amount of grams, the amount of grams of filament you get per spool, which is around 1,000 grams of filament, and as well as any additional expenses. But for this product, there's really no expenses for this because the only expense you have for this is just the item itself. Next is the electricity cost. So then you have time to print, cost per kilowatt hour, and then wattage. So the time to print is around 6 hours. I'm gonna round this up. The cost per kilowatt hour in California, it's around like 32 cents on average, or at least that's like the highest that I've seen. And printer wattage, I would say around 120. So your printer wattage actually varies. So when it's heating up, the wattage actually spikes, but as it starts to stabilize, once the print is already printing, then it actually goes to like an equal medium. So it's going to be variable, but if you really want to get an accurate cost on your electricity, you're going to have to get a meter and have it installed so that way you can know exactly what the cost is, especially when it comes to electricity. Next is labor cost. So if you're charging yourself hourly, let's just say if you're charging yourself minimum wage, here in California, minimum wage is like, I think it's like 16 something like that, 16.50. I can be totally wrong, but let's just say if you're charging yourself $16 an hour, right? And maybe that's not what you're getting paid at your current job, but let's just say you're just charging yourself minimum wage because you're just not trying to, take too much profit or expenses out of your business just yet. The time to prep, it might take you like 5 minutes to package this item up. It might take you, you might have to get the item, package it up, put it in a bubble mailer, and then have the label printed and ready to go. So that way somebody can get it in the mail. So that's going to take around 5 minutes. And as you can see, we already have populated the first 3 columns. We have the material expenses, we have the electricity costs, and we have the labor costs. And by default, you can already see, we already have our total expenses here. We're already $3.21 already in the negative right now, and we would have to break even on this just before we actually make a profit, or actually to be in the black. So next we have shipping. So shipping supply cost and shipping label cost. So shipping supply cost, let's just say if I was using a black bubble mailer, maybe a small one, maybe that's one that's like 4x6, something like that, those usually are around like 30 cents. And then the shipping label cost on average for something like this, it's honestly fairly cheap. The highest I pay for domestic shipping here in the United States is around $6. That's like on a 4x6 or 8x6 envelope. But for something like that, maybe it's around $4.50 because of how small it is and how tiny the item is. So $4.50, and plus it's really lightweight. So it's going to round it up to like $5. So as you can already see, like this is already $8 in the negative. So we need to figure this stuff out, right? We need to know these costs up front, as well as the processing fees. You have the base fee, processing fee, and this is before we charge anything. So my point with this video is not to deter you from selling flexies, but rather start rethinking exactly how you go about selling them. So for example, I would not sell something like this as a one-time purchase. I would probably sell this as like a group buy. Like I would sell 4 of these for, let's just say $14.99. So someone gets 4 of these products for $14.99, which essentially just increases the order value while still providing more value to the customer and also retaining more profit, at least underneath the surface. So my point here, let's just say if we were to charge $14.99, now as you can see, our total expenses here is $8.45. Profit $6.54, and let's just say if we're selling like a 4-pack of these little army guys, then that would sell at that price, assuming that the customer doesn't pay for shipping. Now, if they do pay for shipping, then it's probably more profit in there. But what's my point with all this? My point here is to get a better idea as to what the numbers are for these items. And these items, these are small items. These are impulse buy products. And what you really want to do when it comes to impulse buy products is that you want to sell more of the impulse buy products in bulk or in quantities rather than just one. For example, when you buy gum, you don't buy gum to just get one piece of gum. You buy the gum itself, like the whole package of gum, and you get like 30 pieces, and it makes the value of the $4 gum seem much greater because you're getting like 30 pieces. Now imagine if the company that's making the gum, they sell just one piece of gum for like $1, whereas you buy it for $4 for 30 pieces. Like, it doesn't make any more sense to do this. It's still the exact same amount of work to package the gum and to make it and to do all this stuff in the process. And it's the same amount of work. So realistically, you just want to do something that costs you either the same amount of work or less amount of work that allows you to charge or price your products much higher. But what if you're selling a functional design or a functional product or a product that you had designed or made that solves some sort of specific utility or purpose? So for example, I have this 3D printed toolbox that I designed. I've repurposed this so many times. This was like initially a large scale toolbox, like a Yeti sort of toolbox. Then this was repurposed for a Bamboo Labs kit holder. So this basically holds all the tools for my Bamboo Labs X1 Carbon. But I've seen, for example, people sell, let's just say, injection pens or cases for their pens. And now when all of a sudden, this on its own, if I were to sell this to the 3D printing community, especially as an STL file, it would probably be around like $5, right? But if I were to sell this as like a holder for SD cards, probably around $20. But suddenly, if I market this as a EpiPen holder or a medical device holder, or just it's a case to hold some sort of injection pen, well, suddenly this thing can cost 40 to 50 bucks, and I could probably even shrink it to save down on some print times and just kind of keep all the essentials inside. So what is my point with this is that when you're marketing products like Flexies or functional products, what you're really looking for with your niche is to market it the right way, so that way you can charge a lot more for that product. It's the same way where if you go to Disneyland and you buy a water bottle, that water bottle is going to cost you $8. But if you go to the store across the street, that water bottle is $1.50. It's the same product, but the difference is the location and how it's being presented. If it's in Disneyland, it's going to be $8. If it's at the store, it's going to be like $1.50. So the same thing with this here. So let's just imagine if I were to try to sell this thing for, as a SD card holder. So I actually brought up this example here that I made out of a product that I actually made. And this is a 3D printable toolbox. I actually have the insert for the SD card on my computer, but just don't have it. I have it printed, but let's just pretend that this is it. It actually looks the exact same way. But here is the 3D printable toolbox as a SD card holder. Let's go ahead and preview this. You can see by default, this is going to take us 247 grams of filament. That's 250 grams. And plus, that's going to take us about 8 hours. Now, keep in mind, I do have this at a 0.2 or 0.12. So if I were to change this a little higher and save some print time, it's going to be 250, but it only saves me about an hour. So you can kind of see how much time this takes. In addition to the lid and the container inside where it organizes it, see 2 hours and about 90 grams. So that's like 100 grams of filament right there. So let's go ahead based off of these pieces here. Let's go ahead and kind of calculate the cost. So removing the existing values that we have so far. And what I'm going to do here is calculate the resources or the cost for this. So it's going to cost us, let's just say 250 grams plus 100 grams, 250 grams, so 100 grams. So the cost per spool of filament, this is printed with PLA carbon fiber. So PLA carbon fiber is around 35 bucks. Then you have the filament cost. So amount of filament spent printing. So 250 plus 100 grams, that's around 300 grams of filament that we use. In addition to one roll of PLA carbon fiber is around 1,000 grams, and additional expenses, which might be if I printed this with screws like you see here, these have screws on the side, that's an additional cost. So maybe one packet of screws might cost me 10 bucks, but each screw on its own is maybe like, let's just say it's like 10 cents. And this one uses 4 screws, so it's around 40 cents. The next thing we need to cover is electricity costs. So the time to print. So if we were to calculate the electricity cost, this is going to be around 2.5 hours plus the 6 hours here. So that's around, I would say 9 hours, give or take. So I would round it up just to be safe. So 9 hours to print plus the kilowatt hour. So that's around 30 cents here in California. And then the printer wattage, which is around 120. And as you can see, our material expenses right now are $10.90 plus our electricity cost, which is 32 cents. And already we're $11.52 in the negative. So you can see, so if you're selling a functional product or design, it's going to cost you a little bit more money to put together. But the point here is that you want to figure out ways to market it so that way we can get these expenses as low as possible while having the product markup much higher. Additionally, we have labor costs. So let's just say our hourly is 16 bucks again. Then the time to prep, let's just say maybe it takes us 15 minutes to package this together. So 15 minutes already out of pocket. We're already $10.90, 0.32, $4. We're already $15.52 down, plus the shipping supply cost. So if it costs us, maybe instead of a bubble mailer, like a flat one, maybe we use a box, and this is like maybe 8x6. So I would say that's around like 50 cents per box, at least on average for me. Shipping label costs, which is around $6 on average for those boxes for me, especially on the weight of this. So we're already around $22.02 in the negative. So you can already see like this is a lot of cash we're already spending up front just to have a product have a premium feel, a premium look with all of the bells and whistles for this thing here. And not saying that this is a bestseller or anything like that. What I'm saying is like we're looking at the expenses to print something like this, and we're determining whether or not it's worth it and whether we want to sell it. Now keep in mind, you don't have to sell it the product as is. What you really want to do is figure out how can you take the exact same product and repurpose it to a different community or a different niche. And just as an example, if I were to sell this as an SD card holder, it wouldn't hold that much value compared to what's out there on the market. Like it's just very difficult to compete in that space. But if I were to sell this as like an injection pen case holder, this would easily be 50 bucks just to sell it to that market, because there's a market for people who want to hold their injection pens, their EpiPens, any sort of medical devices that just holds the items itself, that can carry it with them on the go, especially with the secure premium look and feel. You know, you can charge it that much because of the niche, because of where it's presented, just like the Disneyland analogy we presented earlier. So now if we were to charge, let's say $49.99 on this product, now we have a much higher profit margin for our product. We have a $26.52 profit, with our total expenses around $23.47. In addition to all of the material expenses, labor costs, electricity costs, and shipping, which means our product markup is around 112%, which is great. I would gladly package this product and sell it as a holder for one of those items. And you typically see those items like on Etsy, and I would gladly sell it for that price. And that's not bad price. You sell 4 of them, you're already at $100. And truthfully, you can fit more of these onto your build plate. I can maybe even make this smaller and save some cash and just kind of fit the essentials. But what's my point with all this? My point with this is that whether you're selling, you know, articulated designs or a functional product, realistically, what you want to do is try to keep in mind, you want to make sure you're padding yourself with enough profit to make it worth your time and effort, in addition to making it scalable. So for example, if you were to sell Flexies, that means you need to have a printer with an AMS, 4 colors, and the multicolor machine, whether it's an XL like a Prusa XL or an X1 Carbon, P1S, A1, A1 Mini, doesn't matter. That means you need those machines with AMS compatibility, so that way you can print multicolor. And keep in mind, while that's printing, you have to have 4 colors, 4, 5, 6 plus colors, depending on how many colors you have. That means you need to have more of those machines in order to produce the same level of output to print many of these. Now, the difference between this, for a functional design, you can sell this as like a one-time product where you only have, you know, maybe 1 to 2 colors with a little bit more of a higher profit margin. But the difference is that, you know, this is a design that I made, where this is a design, you know, we also made this, but most people won't have access to this or know how to make this. So you're kind of limited on availability and options compared to your own designs and functional products that serve a specific utility or niche. That's my whole point with this video, just to kind of show you the numbers, break everything down, see if I were to sell it in a specific niche or category, how can I price it, and exactly how can I market it to that group of people who would be interested in buying it. And when you know the numbers, then it actually makes sense. Like, yes, I would actually sell it at that price because people are paying that price. And by default, if I can make more money and increase my profit margins, then I might as well repurpose it for that reason. And that's the whole point of seeing your expenses. And, you know, don't give up or think just because, you know, if the expenses don't look good out the gate, you can always repurpose the product in a different niche or category, and it's going to work out better for you, especially when you know how to repurpose the products within a specific category that you can typically charge more for. So with all that said, that pretty much wraps up today's video. The whole goal of this video is to help you get an understanding as to what you should charge for your 3D printed products. This is not a baseline example of what you should do for every single product. I'm not saying that you need to sell to a specific niche or that you need to sell a specific type of product, but rather give you ideas and inspiration and understanding the numbers, because once you know the numbers, everything else in the process just becomes 10 times easier. And if you're comfortable for selling a product at a certain profit margin and you actually like the profit, because for example, if it takes us like 10 minutes to package this together, truthfully, the printer is doing all the work and it takes us 10 minutes to package this together. That's just 10 minutes for, let's just say, $25 profit, which I think is 100% worth it, especially if you're selling so many of these per day. So with all that said, that pretty much wraps up today's video. Let me know your guys' thoughts and opinions down below in the comment section. Additionally, if you want to get access to this spreadsheet, just make sure to click the link down below in the description. It's 100% free for you guys to use. Enjoy. Just make sure to make a copy and don't request it, so that way you can save it into your Google Docs. With all that said, if you're an online seller, creator, or someone who's selling 3D printed products online, who's looking to grow and scale their business even further, or maybe you're someone that's selling STL files or has your own membership and is not seeing the consistent sales or numbers you want to see inside your business, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna leave a link down below to the Print to Product program. It's just a quick link, answer a few quick questions. If you're interested in growing and scaling your 3D printing business to hit those revenue goals that you have for yourself, I'm gonna leave a link down below. Feel free to answer a few quick questions. And with that said, me and my team will reach out and see whether or not we can help you. But with that said, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.